another week goes by, another race goes by that Max Verstappen is like a no-show. So, but we also know that he has just such a big lead and all that kind of stuff. So even though he didn't win, it was still a good week for him, right? Because like he
It
didn't have a
was.
disastrous week.
He didn't have a disastrous week. He picked up points, but most importantly in the drivers' championship fight, Lando Norris, his closest competitor, had a really crappy weekend. In qualifying, Lando Norris was eliminated in the first round. He got caught out for whatever reason. And again, I blame the team. For whatever reason, he had to do his fast lap at the very last minute or couple seconds of that first segment of qualifying. And unfortunately, some car ahead of him ended up bringing out a caution, so he couldn't improve his lap, and he was eliminated. So, big mistake there from McLaren and Mercedes and Norris in qualifying. So they weren't able to pull forward through the race. Max Verstappen wasn't good as predicted at Azerbaijan, and he came away with points though, even on a weekend where he wasn't good, and that was enough to be able to keep the gap over Lando Norris in the championship. So. Verstappen on 313 points, Norris on 254. Again, same as we've been talking about for the past couple of weeks. I don't see much of a scenario for the remainder of the year where Max Verstappen does not walk away with the driver's title. It's just going to have to be complete disaster with multiple failures of complete DNFs for him for races, with McLaren and Lando Norris actually not shooting themselves in the foot or making mistakes and pulling forward. So I still think even, at the negative 230 there, that's still not bad for what is effectively a shoe-in at this point for the Drivers' Championship.
Yeah, and this week he's never won here, correct?
He has never won at Singapore. So these last two tracks, Azerbaijan and Singapore. I've been saying for a while, these are the ones where you do not want to take Max Verstappen. This track in particular is even worse for him than Azerbaijan. I think Red Bull, based on some of the things that they've discovered and things that they've changed with the floor of their car, has started to come to terms with where it has gone astray and why Verstappen and Perez, quite frankly, have lost the edge that they had over the rest of the field. So they're starting to work on that, but it's not going to be enough to come this weekend at a place like Singapore where Verstappen has just never performed well. He's always had problems at this track. He has never won here. It's not going to change this weekend.
Nor should it. I mean, look, he knows at this point what he has to do to win, and on a track that he knows his history isn't all that good. Just stay out of trouble. That's all. Just be smart. Keep the car in one piece.
Just get some points. That's all he needs to do.
That's
And
it.
the car and he are more than capable of doing that, even at this track, which he's not good at. So as long as he keeps doing that, regardless of what Lando Norris and McLaren do, the championship's going to be his, and that's all he needs to do to close out the season. This week, especially, is just get some points. Don't do anything heroic. Wait and move on to go to the races that come to the Western Hemisphere afterward, and then close out the season with another driver's title.
So there's the defending champ is 6-1, and then you've got Perez, who won in 2022, who's done nothing this year, is 35-1, and you got Lewis Hamilton is a two-time champ. Three-time champ. No, four-time champ, right?
At this track,
Yes. Yes,
one,
four times.
four, yes.
So he's 14-1. And by the way, who is Sebastian Vettel? What happened to that guy?
He retired. He was the dominant force for several years, also at Red Bull, winning races and championships. And went over to Ferrari, but ultimately retired a couple of years ago.
Old?
Old
Okay.
age, yes. He's probably in his low 30s.
Oh, that's old. Yeah. So, yeah. Anyway,
Mid 30s.
the starting position, No drivers. The first race was in 2008. Fernando Alonso started 15th. Ever since then, nobody has won here past the 5th position, and
Yeah,
only 2 drivers have won from outside the 2nd position.
yeah, and that fifth position win was Lewis Hamilton. So again, you're looking at somebody that's going to come from the first row, that's going to win. Ferrari, if you think about Ferrari, so they were very good at Azerbaijan, had a chance to win, came down to a last lap battle. Piastri had the handle of the race, but Leclerc was pretty close and competitive throughout. But been saying it all along, Ferrari are fantastic on short runs. They can get the qualifying time. They can put their car in position to be able to manage the race. If things fall their direction during the race, they can win it, but it's up to the other teams to lose it. So McLaren keeps shooting themselves in the foot. If McLaren doesn't make mistakes, I think McLaren's got this win this week. Whether it's Lando Norris or Oscar Piastri, not exactly sure. You might want to go with the team bet on that one, but you're going to be giving up some points there. I think Ferrari is at 3-1 for Leclerc. Sainz maybe even a little at 6. Probably a little. Sainz is a little bit more reasonable, but Leclerc certainly is a little bit too expensive at those odds, considering that Ferrari hasn't proven that through a long run that they can manage the tires well enough to stay ahead of the McLarens, and therefore you're going to have Norris and Piastri that end up beating them. The ones, again, that I think are still at a discount are your Mercedes drivers, the George Russell and Lewis Hamiltons. Look at them there, 14 each. Why not go with both of them? Maybe even you just take them as a podium finisher. They didn't have the greatest Azerbaijan race. Similar things in terms of upgrades where they are going and changing their floor, trying to get a handle on their car. But I think Mercedes is probably the best value on the board. From a favorite perspective this week, it's going to be either the McLaren drivers and Ferrari.
Yeah, Russell has not had a good go of it here in his career. He's been pretty bad on this track. But again, we talked about Hamilton. And even when he hadn't been winning recently, he still has a couple top 5s in his last 3 races since his back-to-back wins in 17 and 18, which, again, were part of his 4 wins here. So, yeah, I think Hamilton seems like a no-brainer for sure. It is interesting, though, that when you take a look at those top drivers, you mentioned Leclerc, and he definitely looks to be the guy that really, see, in a way, you understand why his odds are where they are just based on history. That's all they are. But this year, like you said, that's different. I mean, you're trying to go into you take a look at 2 different ways of handicapping the race. And Leclerc has 2 poles, 2 runner-ups. He has led laps, even though it's only one time. He led 19 laps because the other 2, Norris and Piastri, only second time for Piastri. I think he finished 7th last year. Norris has never led a lap here. So they'll be doing something new for the first time. So I think that's what you're dealing with there. But like you said, I mean, you're just looking at Leclerc, is that even though maybe he has a little bit better history than those guys, you just don't believe that they can get it done.
Ferrari has not shown this entire year that in a race, that through the pit stop cycles, that their car can manage the tires any better than the McLarens or even the Red Bulls earlier in this season. So it's going to have to come down to, for Ferrari to win, it's going to have to come down to another McLaren mistake. Now, the issue is, and why you're getting good odds on Leclerc, is because of the history. But then also, we've been saying McLaren does make mistakes. They're not infallible. They just made one last week with Lando Norris with the first round qualifying. So again, it's going to be a McLaren day. McLaren's got the best car right now. The heir apparent would be Ferrari. But like you said, if you really want to differentiate your strategy and you really want to hedge, again, I would go with one of the McLarens. I think Leclerc's got a chance, but again, I think it's going to take a mistake from McLaren for Leclerc to get through to the win. I do think Hamilton, from a long shot perspective, is one that could potentially pull off a surprise and give you a bigger payout. And again, if you think back to earlier in the season when we were talking about Verstappen at -3 and -4. If you can get a winner at +2 with Lando Norris, you can hedge your bet with a Hamilton at 14 today. You might be making up your entire season just on this one single race here.
And so, are you surprised though that that Carlos, the defending champ, is actually double the price of his teammate?
I am a little bit, yeah, because Sainz has shown certain times this season to be the equal, if not better, of Leclerc. I think the reason why Sainz is starting to trail off is because it's getting more toward the end of the season. We know he's not with Ferrari next year. Last week, he was in contention to have he had a podium finish in his hand, ended up colliding with Sergio Perez there on the last lap, and both of them finished all the way down the order. So I think Sainz, actually, if you're from a Ferrari standpoint, I think Leclerc's got the edge just based on his history at the track, but I think Sainz is pretty good as well. But yeah, from an individual driver's aspect, I'm not sure that there's a big enough difference between the two for me to say that Sainz should be double the odds. So perhaps if you think Ferrari is going to win, maybe you split your bets between Leclerc and Sainz, because you got maybe your hedge instead of Hamilton is Sainz there if you think that Ferrari is going to win because McLaren shoots himself in the foot again.
All right. Any other wagers at all? Let's see. The winning car.
Again, McLaren -120. Ferrari might be a good option there. Well, actually, no, it's not, because either of the drivers are 3 and 6. So why not go with the drivers there versus the team at a 2? If Sainz hits, then you make your money. You just hedge a little bit with Leclerc in there.
Yeah, I mean, if you do really like McLaren, like you were saying, just go with the team bet and get, it's almost even money. It's just not bad if that's the way that you go, and it pays off for you. So, all right. And then what's next for F1?
We got a couple week break before they end up coming over to the Western Hemisphere. So the first up, once they get to October 18th, once they come to the Western Hemisphere, is going to be COTA, United States and Texas.
Oh, so this is that long break we were talking about. So this is it until late October.
That is correct.
Vegas. All right.
Vegas closes out the Western Hemisphere. We got Mexico and Brazil in between Texas, and then we hit Las Vegas at a nice night race with a pretty cool track. Hopefully they have better organization this year for the fans, because last year was a little bit of a fiasco.
Oh, that's right. I was looking at NASCAR Vegas. So the NASCAR is going to be in Vegas almost around the same time, I guess. So you got. Oh, okay. So that's so actually, we're looking at, just to double check this. So it's Texas on the 20th, Mexico the 27th, and then Brazil on November 3rd.
That is correct.
All right. So there you go. After so we are. So we're at that point right now where we're not going to be talking about F1 on this show till late October.
About a month. Yep.
And again, the advice here is clearly, though, even though we don't like to give it a whole lot, but this is if you're ever going to invest in a sporting event where you got to give up 2-to-1 odds basically, or a little bit more than that. This is as good as that's going to get. I mean, this is, yeah. I mean, this seems like it's almost too easy.
Yeah, I think this is McLaren's race to lose. It's Verstappen's championship. You might as well start engraving the trophy now. Close to McLaren, certainly this weekend is going to be Ferrari. But if you're really looking for a good long shot, Lewis Hamilton at the 14-to-1 would be the best hedge that's out there.
All right, CJ, and again, we're going to have the link in the description when we post this video. So obviously, we're doing that. And you're watching the video, so just check at the link at the bottom of the screen. You could click there, and CJ will let you know what's going on with the RotoWire Fantasy Report for this race. And we'll talk to you later in October for more F1 talk. As far as NASCAR, of course, we're going to be back again next week with more NASCAR coverage as we go to another round in the playoffs. And there's a link in the description for the NASCAR show that we did, so you can check that out. And we'll be talking NASCAR. solo for the next several weeks here on Mystery Caution. And of course, you can check out Prime Sports Network as well, where we post most of our NASCAR videos. So that wraps it up. CJ, appreciate your time as always, and we'll be talking F1 with you in several weeks.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
And we'll talk to everybody again real soon. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, question, anything like that in the description comment area here of the show. And we'll see everybody here talking F1 in a few weeks.